Equalizing and Decolonizing the Relationship Between Domestic and International Students in Multicultural Group Work and International Development course.
Thanks. Yes, I'm Rikio from Japan, and the title of my presentation was said by Eri, so I don't repeat it. But I believe the multicultural group work is a space where students can learn decolonizing and also inclusiveness in an experiential way. So let me start with the context, and purpose. So there's a deficit perception surrounding international students in university in the West. International students are considered as deficient in the English language abilities. They don't communicate properly. They seem less motivated. They appear to be free riders, especially in a group work context. And this is kind of reminiscent of the process of othering. In other words, by declaring someone others, we tend to sort of differentiate them. We tend to sort of stereotype them. So here, the powerful domestic student is the powerful with the English language abilities. Who are the international students who are the sort of powerless because of the weak English language abilities. So this is sort of applicable to Japanese higher education context in which a lot of universities have become internationalized and they start offering English-based courses. So here the context is such that Japanese students with a weak English ability is a powerless, and those who are coming from overseas international student is a powerful with a good, better English abilities. And my university is a good example. It's an international university where 50% of students are coming from overseas, and we offer both Japanese and English courses to students. And the purpose of my course design, it's again, is to equalize, decolonize relationship between those with the power, in other words, with the language abilities, and those with the power for inclusive multicultural group work, where ideally powerful should neither dominate nor segregate the powerless, where the powerless feel included and their difference are appreciated and valued. And ultimately, both international students and domestic students can learn how inclusiveness, how inclusive development is like in an experiential way by working together in a multicultural group work. So the context of my course is this project management in development. That's a third year student course. It's a 7 weeks course. There's once a week session, but once a week session is sort of a consecutive 2 sessions. First session is followed by a second session with the group case study analysis. And I use this first course strategically, as I will mention later. Enrolled students composition back in 2017, there were 35 Japanese students and 90 international students. And back in 2018, I had 15 Japanese students and 70 international students. I also hire 4 undergraduate TA for facilitating group work. The interventions and idea behind those, I deliberately, intentionally try to create multicultural, multinational actually groups by putting members from different nationalities to increase cross-cultural diversity within the group. That's the first thing. And I especially use first session strategically. The literature suggests that intervention to foster cross-cultural exchange and understanding should happen at early stage of the course. So I follow the principle. So I first administer the questionnaire on multicultural group work to sensitize a student with better English abilities to assist those with weak English abilities, and also to facilitate agency of those with weak English abilities. Let me share the questionnaire itself. So student can choose either question A or B depending on their English abilities. Students who choose A are likely to have better English abilities, and they are asked what would you do if there are students who experience difficulty with English in your group. I provide 3 options of doing nothing, do something, none of the above. And students who with weak English abilities likely to choose this second question, what would you do? You yourself experience difficulty with the English. Again, 3 options, do something, do nothing, do something, nothing, none of the above. So, and I collect the data from students and then I share the results in the second session. But the result is as follows. So for the first question, what would you do if there's a student who have a difficulty with the English? A few of them say do nothing. Most of them say they do something. A few of them say none of the above. It's both 2017, 2018 similar results, which I kind of expected. Even though there are some students who say none of the above, they can provide sort of a sensible responses. So for example, student from 2017 say that it depends on the person. If they are still putting some effort, I want to help. But if they don't put any effort, I can't do anything about it. The second student from 2018 said that, okay, I try to simplify my English, but she won't simplify so much that it limits the discussion because I don't want one person to jeopardize the quality of the whole group work. So it's pretty sensible responses. And going back to those with weak English abilities answered, most of them say they do something. A few of them say they do nothing. So this is basically to encourage mutual interactions within their group in the first session. The other thing I do in the first session is ice-breaking activity to foster cross-cultural understanding. I introduce Nolan's table of hypothetical cultures. For example, what does each culture do to define problems? What does each culture do for hiring and firing employees? And what does each culture do communication and giving feedback? And I also add additional cross-cultural contrasts, which are particularly relevant to multicultural group work. For example, like learning culture, whether it's teacher-centered learning culture or student-centered learning culture, or what is the collectivist attitude toward cross-cultural group work, and what is individualistic cultures attitude toward cross-cultural group work, and what is a view of responsibility? Is it responsibility is normally taken by leaders, or responsibilities are normally shared by group members? So it's not just about language abilities that matters, but it's actually learning approach that are also different and that matters. And I want students to be aware of that. So I ask students to go through this list by being paired with another member from another country in their group. So and I want them to go through this how each culture function in these domains, and I ask them to go through think, pair, and share process. So first, individual students think individually, and then second, the students share what they came up with their partner in their pair, and eventually they share with the whole group. Okay.
You've got 5 minutes more.
Thank you. Okay, I'll stick to it. So these ice-breaking activities help students acknowledge, cross-cultural diversity in the group, and also implicitly help students to formulate, cross-cultural communication protocols specific to their group. And also, as I mentioned in think and pair share process, this gives us kind of safe space in which those with a weak English ability can increasingly increase confidence and capacities in a safe space. But more importantly, it kind of enable those with English abilities to enact the role of experts because they are familiar with the cultural practices. They are the specialists. And they are the only one who knows about their culture. So they can confidently express their ideas because they are familiar with the topic. So it's kind of resonate with a principal inquiry process in which we look at what people what people know, instead of looking at the people as something like deficit or they don't know anything about it. And maybe a topic can be like environmental issue from their own country, can be used if you're teaching like environmental studies course. Okay, I also introduce facilitation tip for students, and I ask them to go through a checklist so that particularly those with strong English abilities can solicit ideas from those with English abilities. And finally, I do some evaluation survey on multicultural group work, which is yeah, this one. So did you express your view? Did I share responsibility? Did everybody equally express ideas? So I want to use this one to kind of embed reflection process. So I do this a couple of times, a few times in the quarter, so the students are reminded that it's important for them to interact this way to reinforce mutual interaction in the group work. And I also TAs in my class also use data from this questionnaire for their group facilitation as information. Okay, maybe the implication for the US context is, or maybe if you apply this to the US context, is that maybe domestic students may become reflexive about their superior position in terms of language and dominant learning approach. And also they may decolonize the practice of using English and learning approach for dominating others, in other words, othering. Also, they may develop habit of inclusive development in this divided, polarized world. Thank you.
Wow, you really completed before time. That's great. There may be time for one question at least.
Well, I can go and ask the question that I put in the chat. Oh, there's actually, and Lindsay has an actual question, so she can also, we can follow up on that. I was just said that when I was listening to you, it sounded as if your assignment was in some ways assessing voice. You know, the ability of a student to find their voice, which is, I think, so troublesome. So that was, maybe that's more of a comment than a question, but Lindsay had an actual question as well about resistance to this voice.
Okay. Yes, there's a lot of resistance. They don't like group work. I mean, Japanese students don't like group work. International students don't like group work for different reasons. International students don't like group work because they're Japanese, or maybe those with the weak English abilities become free riders, and those with the better English abilities have to bear more burdens of, for example. So they don't like it, but I believe that, I think that's a space where they can learn inclusiveness. So I still stick to the process.
Got one more minute.
And there's one more question in the chat there. Courtney, you want to ask your question?
Do you have a team members? Oh yeah, I have a peer review process. So I have students go through a peer review process 2 times a quarter, one in the middle of a quarter, one at the end of a quarter. So I try to encourage them to become accountable to each other. Yes, I do that.
I think time is almost up. Time is up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. And thanks, Raj, for a great first timekeeper. I think he set a great model for the rest of us.
Well, I hope
we have a chat